Last Wednesday, President Bola Tinubu signed an executive order for the direct remittance of oil and gas revenues to the Federation account, removing the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited's power to remit the earnings. In a statement issued on his behalf, presidential spokesperson Bayo Onanuga outlined that the order is expected to safeguard and enhance oil and gas revenues for the Federation, curb wasteful spending, and eliminate duplicative structures in the oil and gas sector. The presidency said the order took effect on February 13th and has been officially gazetted, indicating that its implementation is now underway. In the meantime, the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, which is the most powerful union in Nigeria's oil and gas sector, has appealed to President Tinubu to rescind that executive order on oil revenue. Now, what could be the direct implication of this executive order on NNPCL and even the federal government itself? Still on the oil and gas, President of Dangote Refinery and Petrochemical Limited, Aliko Dangote, has disclosed plans to double the current size of its refinery, which is the largest single-train facility in the world. The disclosure was made during a tour of the refinery by a delegation from the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited, led by Group Chief Executive Officer Bayo Ojulari.
Expansion of the plant is in hand, which means that we will double the capacity of this plant by just replicating exactly what is on ground.
They are holding 7.25% of the shares that we have here, which is more than the shares Elon Musk has in Tesla. So, and they are holding that on behalf of Nigerians. So, but individually, Nigerians too will have an opportunity in the next, I don't know, but I think in the next maybe maximum 4 or 5 months, they will actually be option to buy their shares. And like what I promised before, people will have a choice either to get their dividend in Naira or to get their dividends in dollars, because we earn dollars.
Oil and gas expert Toyin Akinosho joins me now. Mr. Akinosho is a petroleum geologist and publisher, Africa Oil and Gas Report. Great to have you. Publisher, we do call you, Mr. Akinosho. Good to have you around. Happy Sunday to you. How have you been?
Yeah, happy Sunday. It's good to see you. You're looking
good to
very well.
see you. Good to see you too. All right, let's talk about the industry that you know so well, particularly given the controversy that is trailing the executive order by President Tinubu on the remittances, by NNPCL and the powers that they derive from the PIA. It looks to many people and industry watchers that maybe there might be confrontation at some point, given that NNPCL I want to argue that it derives its power from the PIA. What do you make of this executive order from the president and then the hoopla that it has been generating? Break it down for us.
Good afternoon again. My sense, the moment I read that press release was, I just thought of a phrase, snap your fingers. And that's what came to my mind. You can't snap a finger and, amend the law. For whatever it's worth, we've been debating this for a while. And when a lot of the time that the NEIT I will release reports, it will talk a lot about what the NNPC was meant to be putting into the Federation account.
Into the coffers
of
the
Federation. Would argue back and say there were issues, and there were times that the NNPC will say, well, we had to construct a gas pipeline. We had to, and then you start to wonder whether, what is meant to be Federation account was part of what they were using, and they can be quite inefficient with this project. So these things have been all over the place. And even after the signing of the PIA, there were still some of these dysfunctions. But I just don't think that that's the way you resolve that issue.
What you mean by what the president has done?
Yeah, I think that you really needed to set in motion some kind of a legislative, amendment, and let people see that, and,
If he truly thinks that those retentions, those 30% here
Yes.
and there, ought not to stay with them.
Yes, because these things are in the law. It's not NMPC who says they will have. Of course, the PIA was largely, a product of NMPC.
Yes.
It was, it was also deliberated upon, and there are
It took a long time ago, and what many people were thinking was that, all the problems of the oil and gas sector, will be resolved now that we had PIA. And we've had it for more than 3 years, isn't it now?
Yeah, well, there's a whole lot that we've resolved, truly.
Okay.
And, and these things that the president has done is also part of the things that will lead to the conversations that will determine whether one way of, in implementing this is better than the other way.
Okay.
I, for example, had issues with 30% of PSC, profit oil, they call it.
Profit oil.
I also go into the NMPC. But it doesn't still mean that when you look at it, that the so-called profit oil is that huge, It refers to the PSC, and we have JV and we have PSC.
Correct.
And I can't say from the top of my head whether the PSC is bigger pie. But last time I checked, most of the assets in the PSC, were much smaller than the assets in the JV now.
Yeah.
3 years ago, 4 years ago, they weren't,
Yeah.
So it also depends on what you're looking at. The PSCs are largely the deep water,
Yes.
areas, and they're doing less than 300,000 barrels a day now. And we have, a total of 1.4 to 1.5 million barrels, which means that
which is still a far cry
that
from
is
the assumptions for the
1/5.
budget.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that is exactly, and so that means that's pretty small. But that's not the point.
Yeah.
The point is, process. The president got it when he snapped his fingers and decided that there would be
No more subsidy.
Yeah. We all clapped. Some of us who felt
This
that
finger snapping has become a style, isn't it?
He's trying to flood the zone. He's like, okay, let me, the thing that Trump does, while you're busy arguing about this, I'm already doing another thing. I need to go forward. It's important for us to get funding into a lot of funds into the Federation account, sure. But why don't we just, what does it take?
Processes and procedure, that's what you're talking
Exactly.
about.
That's all I need, if we're going to, for example, there are reasons why the PIA determined, let's even assume that, some of those figures are a little bit on the high side. But there are reasons why you say that you want to fund the frontier exploration.
Okay.
Because, Shell, okay, now their Renaissance or Seplat will not go to the Benin Basin, They won't go to the Sokoto Basin or the Gongola Basin. They will, be struggling with what would they find. If we haven't resolved the so-called Kolmani discovery that NMPC claimed that they found. Nobody released any test, any test results. We don't have the idea of how sizable it is. No one has reported anything. So it is possible. I can understand a president feeling that these guys are playing so much game. Let me just take the money away from them. But the thing is that quite a number of countries now are ensuring that they spend money on exploration, seismic activity, actual evaluation, so that when in the frontier, so that when they want to bid, when you call for a bid round, you actually have a quality data that is, that's in high graded to the point where you can determine right there that this is doable, that we can run with this. A lot of that's why multi-client, seismic acquisition is happening, and that the state sometimes pays for elsewhere in West Africa. The Liberians are doing it. Sierra Leoneans are doing it. The thing is that you can't, because we do know that we needed to diversify the sources of crude.
Yes.
Crude production. But so that is one area, and I think that is one area where the president might say, why do you need 30% for this?
Yeah.
But if the president says, let's move it to the federation account, how then does whichever company is meant to access it to do exploration, let's even assume it's no longer NNPC, how the processes to then begin to say that we need a bunch of seismic activity here, but somebody needs to fund it. Already it was beginning to be a challenge. NUPRC was meant to be releasing this to NNPC. As I'm talking to you, this year NNPC hadn't been able to access it. I can tell you that it's not, I can pretend that NNPC is just wasting the money.
Why wouldn't NNPC be able to access, what is meant to be is sort of operational?
Well, you could also argue that the regulator is saying, let me see, yeah, exactly.
Justified.
Let me see what you've done. And we all have challenges with some of the things that NNPC has claimed to have discovered in the north of the country. Yeah, in the geology community, there's a whole lot of questions. I can assure you that. So people can say, yes, the president is right, but we want a nation of laws. That's all I'm saying.
What do you think would have informed that executive order, the decision by the president? Is it for accountability or is it to raise funds? And what sort of funding on an annual basis do you think that we're dealing with here? Trillions? Or some tidy billions?
No, when you're talking in terms of naira, it's trillions.
Okay.
I mean, and it can pretty much be a bit of a challenge when you are trying to track what NIT is reporting, even for the soundest minds in the petroleum industry. When you see the figures that come out, or when you see how they are modeling, a lot of people are challenged by how much exactly is where. Where. So I can imagine the president saying, you remember when Mrs. Okonjo-Iweala, Mrs. Okonjo-Iweala was, Dr. was appointed by the President Obasanjo. She told her, let me have a sense of where all the debts are. We're supposed to be owing these characters here. That's
it. Shouldn't be opaque.
Exactly.
There shouldn't be anything shady.
I think that the president had that sort of mindset.
Okay.
And so it's coming from a right place. It is my sense that, for example, people will say that they've taken quite a bit of funding, revenue from NNPC that wasn't meant to be NNPC's. That's always been that argument that NNPC just needs to have, when you raise all the money, you just need to have some kind of a percentage to work, and then you need to build up your own spine, and generate a lot of revenue. And NNPC is leaving a lot of value on the table.
Okay.
So people can say that, but let us not do it by fiat.
All right. There are two important issues that have trailed this decision. And I get your point about not, doing it by fiat. And one is the fact that Pengasson, which is essentially a union, isn't it, of workers saying, no, this cannot fly. President, you need to take a step back. You need to rescind this decision, because by going forward, you'll be contravening a legislation, a law. And then there's also a few newspapers reported this morning that there's the likelihood of federal government actually probing all the previous retentions, by the NNPC. So there might be a kind of a audit, a probe and things like that. And therefore, how should the nation proceed? We're happy with it, or it's something that we can live with if it is done properly?
It's that second part I want to agree with. If you say, for example, that you you have told a bunch of people to invest in NNPC, and there's already a bid out.
Yeah.
And if I was sitting down in Sweden and I was looking at the Nigerian map, and I was saying, okay, I need to go and invest in this particular company that I want to have 5% of is guaranteed to have 30% of these, is guaranteed to have 10% from here.
Yeah.
I'm modeling everything and looking at my revenue flow.
Okay.
And then I realized that someone can just wake up and say that's not going to happen. If there's some kind of a consistency in terms of presenting it in the National Assembly, or there's a way that Nigeria does these things without looking uncertain all the time, I can live with it. But if this just means that anyone can show up and change the law overnight, then I will worry about whether I want to invest in that NMTC. That's really my own problem.
So the risk of investors' confusion, might arise.
We should, we are not. We've done quite a number of interesting things in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Everybody agrees that
in terms of reforms and
exactly.
all that.
I mean, especially the special advisor to the president of energy, because the brain,
the lady.
Yeah. I mean, that all of these things are coming from that room. That's the engine room, really. Okay. I mean, between me and you, if I'm ranking all of the people who the president has put in the ministry, whether it's gas minister or oil minister, I don't know what those people are doing, but I can see
you see a sense in what
So, and I know that there's a lot of thinking, but the arbitrariness is the issue. Now, if you take a look at the fact that we have suddenly been getting traction in the international space. Mm-hmm. And then these guys are skeptical. They're still looking at us. And then they get this kind of stories that make them think, oh, these fellows, they really haven't got their stuff together. That's really the sort of way I'm looking at this.
There's an interesting way.
I sit in places where S&P Global, Wood Mackenzie, who might not be saying this in presentations, are ranking Angola on top of Nigeria in terms of the environment.
Yeah.
What gets us in the door, in ranking, is the geology, is the quality of our reservoirs, which Angola doesn't have. Angola is about 1/4
of
the basin field that the Nigeria. So no matter how nice they talk, you really can't find those reservoirs the way you can find it in the Niger Delta. So there's always both.
Yeah.
They have a clearer line of sight to value, and there's really not a snapping of the fingers.
Let me read to you, Mr. Akinosho, part of what the special advisor to the president, Mr. Onanuga, put out, which is a bit worrying to many people in the industry. And it says that the PIA created structural and legal channels through which substantial federation revenues are lost through deductions, sundry charges, and fees. And then it now says, according to the statement, Tinubu said his administration will conduct a comprehensive review of the PIA in consultation with relevant stakeholders, blah, 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 to address identified fiscal and structural anomalies. Is the PIA therefore on the line? You think?
I mean, we've always said that, let us start to implement and we will find out some of those loopholes. Let's just get a law out and we will. So this is part of that engagement. A country needs to keep on having a conversation. A nation is a hive of conversations. That Absolutely. Is what makes a country,
Absolutely.
I mean, so we need this. I'm interested. I mean, I've also noticed, for example, that some of these audits process is going on already. I mean, the people in the new NIRS, they've been doing a whole lot of work, especially because they had to take over before this, they had to take over the revenue collection of, I think, royalties from NUPRC already, so, and because they don't have those skill sets, they've been doing a lot of work trying to, amp up, I mean, and that's also part of the challenge about this, this whole idea of, I mean, you need to do things that are fairly significant in a very short amount of time. When a bunch of people from Shell sit in the room and they are running those figures the way they understand the industry, and you don't have the quality of staff who have been doing this for a while. The NUPRC has that.
I get your point.
I mean, whether I like it or not, you might be the smartest guy in the room. There are times that I've listened to people who are some of our most knowledgeable people, and when they talk about the oil industry, I'm just wondering whether, what they're talking about. Someone was here saying that you should give every state, an oil block, But I can assure you that the worst performing...
You think that's about it, that's right?
The worst performing oil blocks are the ones run by the states. Yeah, sure. I mean, I have the figures. I mean, these states have not been...
I get your point, Mr. Akinosho. We really have to go, but I was hoping that you would touch on the Pengasyn and then the...
Oh, no, I don't... I used to be a
That's
Pengasyn.
not your line.
That's not... But the thing is, I think Pengasyn is not even the issue at this point in time. We need to actually do these audits. It's important.
Fantastic.
But the law is a law, and we need to process it.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Toyin Akinosho, for joining me on This Day Live. Thank you indeed.